Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees. My guests this episode are David and Brad. They're members of the Call to the Bullpen podcast, and they're here to talk about the Yankee offseason as well as baseball free agency. So let's bring them on. All right, so it's the Call to the Bullpen podcast. People can follow you on Instagram as well as Twitter. So CTBP Pod. They can watch you on YouTube, which is cool, and of course listen to you on wherever you get your podcast. So guys, appreciate David and Brad. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, we appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk ball. We love talking baseball. Our group chat's going like 24 hours a day. So any opportunity to talk baseball is a good one for us.
All right, so you have a third member of your team, Jimmy. He wasn't able to come here, but how'd you guys get started with this? How'd you get it off the ground?
Back my senior year of college, one of my teammates actually had a podcast himself on like the school radio network, and kind of gave me the idea to do a baseball one. And then about halfway along through my first season, I brought Brad on as a co-host. And then this year we brought Jimmy on, who you just mentioned. So we got our team of 3 on the podcast now, and then our social pages, we've got a team of 8 guys in total that do a variety of different things around the organization.
Gotcha. And I saw you have that other gentleman, Ed. He contributes as well.
Yeah, Ed does our MLB The Show stuff. So he does like Diamond Dynasty streams. We're going to get into some co-op stuff. We have some more stuff coming on the MLB The Show front in the video game arena. So we got Ed doing that. We have Adam, who does betting content. Taylor's our TikTok guy. Mikey from MLB Research does a weekly post for us. Owen does our top 5 plays. And then we got our guys here that do the show, me, Brad, and Jimmy.
All right, cool. And again, people can follow you, maybe check it out on Instagram, CTPB Pod, and get all that cool stuff. So what about you guys? You're just yourselves as baseball fans. You guys have any teams you root for? Or you kind of just general like the sport,
Yeah, these guys right here. I'm a Orioles guy, and Bradley is too. I was a Yankees fan growing up, though. We're from Connecticut, so my family's Yankees fans, and we would go to Baltimore to watch the Yankees play the O's because it was cheaper to take the family to Baltimore for a weekend than it was to go to Yankee Stadium for one game. So we'd go down there, and I just kind of like broke away from the pack and fell in love with the O's. And then when I met Bradley, you were a Red Sox fan?
Yeah, I was a Red Sox fan at the time. So it was definitely kind of like we both kind of wanted to break away from the memes of everybody like around here being Red Sox, Met, or Yankee, and they're still like in the general area, so it's nice to be able to watch them in the regular times as the other local sports here.
Funny enough, I used to early 2000s. I used to make a lot of trips down to Baltimore just because it's like it's cheaper in a way. It's actually it's a really nice stadium, and you actually have a better shot of like getting some autographs for the batting practice on the field than you would probably at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, that's a big reason that we would go to. We collect autographs. That was like one of the ways that I fell in love with baseball was like collecting autographs with my dad. Baltimore is such a great spot because you have the players' parking lot right there, accessible, so you can get the guys when they're coming in as well as inside the stadium. It's not as packed or security is not as tight as at like a Yankee Stadium. So we definitely have tons of good memories getting autographs down there in Baltimore.
Yeah, for baseball, I feel like it's one of the easier sports to get autographs like before games and after games because a lot of the other two main sports, they're really going into the locker rooms right after the games are over. They're not really hanging around, and these guys usually you'll catch them in the parking lot for 45 minutes. Sometimes some of the guys who really just want to be there and make a connection to the people of their fan base and their city.
Good thing about Baltimore, actually, they had a really good season, good bounce back for them, just for the organization, the fans, and I think they might be an organization on the upswing as they kind of, made a little, they were in the wild card hunt there for a while, but in the future, I think next year they might make a bit of a leap.
Yeah, I think our GM Mike Elias put it best when he said that it's liftoff. The culmination of the prospects coming up this year. Now you have a team with a $35 million payroll and lots of free agents out there. So looking to hopefully see a big splash on the free agent front on the pitcher side would be nice. And then also prospects are currency these days. And we have an abundance of prospects. I mean, the guys who are like 10th in our system would be 1s and 2s and others. So to see some of those prospects get packaged for a frontline starter would be nice to give a boost to the club because you got John Means coming back as well, Grayson Rodriguez coming up, and definitely feels as a fan like liftoff.
Yeah, I feel like if they're gonna go target one of those frontline guys, if you're gonna go get one of the Milwaukee starting pitchers, go for it. But a big thing with this offseason, because a lot of the above quality starting pitchers got qualifying offers, but Baltimore would only lose their first third round pick, and they automatically get another third that is protected by them not being able to sign their third rounder last year from Oklahoma State, the starting pitcher slash first baseman that they drafted. They guaranteed that pick, so they would lose their third round pick, and then they would keep their other third, and then lose the fourth. So that'd be the highest, well, lowest, I guess, pick that a team could lose in the draft for signing a second free agent. So it's definitely all arms go in Baltimore this offseason.
And I was coming off this World Series. I was a Yankee fan. I just wanted to bury my head if they got swept. But who are you guys rooting for, Houston or Phillies?
I kind of pulled from Philly right from the jump. I'm a big Harper fan. So to see him get in the playoffs, and then of course we're Machado fans as well from his time in Baltimore. So we had a good time watching that NLCS there. But I was pulling for the Phillies all the way through. I got to go and see them play this summer. So I thought it would be cool to say that, I saw the World Series champ play in that year. And I actually saw them in a series where they got swept by the Chicago Cubs. So who would have thought that a couple of months later they'd be in the World Series there? But I kind of thought from the start that the Astros were going to take it pretty easily.
Yeah, I was pulling for Philly too. It's a team that hadn't been there in a while too. And you always love that kind of like Cinderella. They kind of snuck in, see what they could do, end up winning a World Series. But I thought Houston was just too deep this year. It was their World Series to lose, and credit to them for doing their job and getting another ring.
But I was shocked that the GM, James Glick, obviously he turns down a 1-year extension. And I mean, here's a guy who, he's gotten this team to the ALCS 3 years in a row, just got him a championship, and the owner doesn't want to retain him long term. I mean, that was kind of confusing.
Yeah, that was a bit of a shock. I think, it makes sense to bring Dusty Baker back on a 1-year deal, considering he's up there. You don't know how many years he's going to want to stick around for. But James Click, a young guy who's taken you to the ALCS 3 straight years, won you a World Series. I think also a shout out to guys like Jeff Lunhow and Mike Elias for what they did to put together on this Astros roster. A lot of them were Click guys, but a lot of them came before from those guys too. But I think that definitely deserving of a multi-year deal, and good for him sticking to his guns and, not giving into the 1 year, because somebody out there is going to have a multi-year deal for a guy that's taken his team to the championship series 3 years in a row.
Yeah, that's definitely one of my opinions there. He deserved way more than a 1-year offer. I mean, for Houston, I get where the owner's coming from. But when they hired Dusty, that was basically a PR stand. That they needed to show that their franchise had some face value on it after the cheating scandal. It's weird that they didn't decide to offer to him. The only thing I could think of is Click is kind of like a new analytical guy, and you have Dusty Baker, who's been in the game for over 50 years. He's not that keen on analytics.
And I know a lot of Yankee fans would rather, probably ship Cashman out and take Glick, any day, just because the success he's had lately. And getting to the Yankees, I mean, are you shocked that, just the way they got swept like that? They brought back both Cashman and Boone. I mean, they didn't give Cashman a new contract back, but you can kind of tell he's doing press conferences. He's going to be the GM next year moving forward.
It's a bit like something has to give at some point where, every year for, was it 13 years now, they haven't been able to put out a World Series team. And honestly, it's not like it was necessarily even close this year, where the Astros just kind of ran through them. Even throughout the regular season, the Yankees managed to steal a couple games there, but you kind of saw how the home runs in Yankee Stadium wouldn't have been in Houston, and how Houston led for the entire series. So I'm not sure I was surprised the way they got swept, but I'm definitely surprised that, at some point something's got to give. The Cashman strategy is not working out, and you could blame Cashman as much as you want to, but it's Hal that's making the decisions at the end of the day, on the financial side and on the personnel side. But I think that as long as that combo is there, you're going to see the Yankees be a team that sells a lot of hot dogs and plays 162 hard games. But at the end of the day, there's going to be somebody that's a notch above them if they don't go all the way, which I think involves either Cashman reverting to what we saw him do in like the off seasons in like 2008, 2009, or stepping aside and having someone else come in.
Yeah, I think Cashman, at least, even if you move Cashman up a role, where you just bring in another voice into that GM role, I feel like it'd be fresh. You get new information there. I think it's definitely something they need to look into at least.
And a lot of their staff under them, like the scouting departments, other departments, they've been there like again, like 10, 15 years. Where if you look at Houston, a lot of people just only been in that role a year or two. Again, a little like fresh eyes, fresh ideas. So again, they probably need something, especially I think in the player development, because Yankees are usually pretty good at developing like maybe pitchers or relievers, but position players not such a good job.
Where are you at on the whole? Like, would you rather Click come in, or do you think that Cashman, considering the history he has with the organization, where do you fall on the GM debacle?
Yeah, I'm really in the middle. Like I could go either way. Like I do like that. I mean, I think he does have the skill of finding like players like a Clay Holmes, a Jameson Tyone. Even some of the moves he pulled off, to get like Rizzo in here for practically nothing. Get Benintendi in here. Now the guy ends up getting hurt. He signs like Matt Carpenter off the scrap heap last year, and the guy's like Roy Hobbs all of a sudden. So there's so many good things he does well. It's just at the end of the day, you haven't had a championship since 2009. It's like, hey, what are we doing here? And plus, we're not developing great young talent on our own here. So I'm really caught in the middle. I could really go either way on it. But I do like the idea of like some organizations like the Yankees and going to football, but or like the Pittsburgh Steelers. I like a certain longevity of having general managers and coaches in there, cohesion for a long period of time. Just I think it's a sign of strength when you're flipping managers and GMs left and right. I just think it's a sign of a weakness. So I'd probably maybe just lean more keeping them. Maybe it's just out of loyalty, but yeah, I'm okay either way. But I would rather maybe just stick with them, just out of loyalty.
Yeah, that makes sense. I see that angle for sure, and I just think at a certain point, things do go wrong with players like Benintendi getting hurt, Carpenter going down after you're right, he was hitting like Babe Ruth for the first part of his tenure with the Yankees. But just at a certain point, just to a show to the fan base, like we are trying here. Just you can blame the players so much. But at the end of the day, the accountability I feel like comes in that front office, and the sweep feels like to me like a nail. It should have been a nail in the coffin kind of thing. Maybe the Yankees go 7 in that series, then I could see bringing them back. But I feel like the sweep is just should have been a nail in the coffin.
One position player the Yankees have developed successfully because now he's a free agent, Aaron Judge, of course, to give me the big all-season ticket. So do you think the Yankees go all out to retain him, or you're hearing some of this noise that the Giants are going to go all out no matter what to try to bring him to the West Coast? I mean, where you feel Judge is going to land?
I think that they have to. I think they have to retain him because without him, I think that they're a third, fourth place team in the East, and I think that they need him a little bit more than he needs them. With rumors that San Fran's going to throw big money. Of course, everybody's interested in the guy who should be the MVP this year. But I think that they're in a position that they can't let him go. When you think of the Yankees, you think of Aaron Judge. And he really carried that lineup through most of the season this year. So I see him back with the Yankees.
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely what you were saying. It's they need him more than he needs them right now. And the Yankees have always been this organization that they've said, for the most part, money does not matter. And then they've kind of give a little pushback on that for the last few years, getting under the luxury tax. But when it comes down to you re-signing one of your homegrown players who's coming off a 60 home run season, MVP season, he's been with you forever. It's really tough for you to not bring him back and then try to tell fans like, oh, this is how we're replacing him, that we're going to put the resources elsewhere, but it's not going to be the same regardless if they don't bring him back. There's nobody that you can replace right now that'll shoot enough energy into that franchise like Aaron Judge would.
I totally agree with you. And like, yeah, to your point, David, I mean, not only the 62 home runs, but he just like, if you watch the games individually, he literally carried the team to so many big hits. And I think without him, like maybe a couple games over 500, that's it. And maybe not even a wild card team. So I think he's definitely should be back. And I think they will bring him back. And so David, I guess you showed your hand. You think Judge should be the MVP. Brad, what is your feeling? Judge or Ohtani? Who do you think's going to get it?
Yeah, I definitely felt like Judge earned it towards the end. I mean, we were saying for a majority of the season that he had to break a record to get that MVP, solidify himself, and him getting to 60 and then eventually 62 really solidified him getting that MVP. But I would say it's a lot closer than a lot of people would think with Ohtani, just from what Ohtani brings from both sides of the fields. it's really crazy how he just affects the game, just the whole organization. Otani does. And Judge is going to win it this year. It's going to be well deserved, but I feel like Otani is definitely the better overall player if I'm moving forward.
I think the craziest thing too is how Otani was even better than he was last year in his unanimous MVP season. And like Brett said, the key is really Shohei is doing something that we've never seen before. So in order to beat him out for the MVP, you have to also do something we've never seen before. And I think that that's the fair way to kind of balance it, because you're not going to have two separate awards. You're not going to have the Shohei Otani award that you give him every year for being incredible. So he's got to be in the running for that MVP. So if you can do something also that we've never seen, like 62 home runs in the American League, I think even when Judge had 60, Shohei was my MVP. But the second the Judge hit 61 and broke that record, he became the MVP for me.
And, sticking in the AL East, obviously another big name floating around is going to be Xander Bogaerts. Does he stay with Boston or not? Could a lot of ramifications as how the AL East breaks down. What do you think? Do you think they try to retain him?
I think that the bridge was burned when Trevor Story was brought in. Bringing in another shortstop like that, with already some low ball offers having been made, kind of felt like a bit of a smudge to Bogarts, and I'm not sure that that's something there that like the rift there is going to be repaired. So I see Bogarts leaving, and a team that I would point out for him would be the Cardinals.
Yeah, I think I have Bogarts leaving too eventually too. The beginning of the year, like you were saying, I just felt like when they brought in Story, that was it. He was about done with Boston, and they were about done with him. Um, for Bogarts, I feel like if he goes out in free agency and he says he's open to third base, he might get a lot more money because he'd be the best on the market. But I feel like St. Louis is definitely a good spot for him because he'd fit right into that lineup with Goldschmidt, with Arenado. He wouldn't have to be your 3 or your 4 hitter. You can hit him 2, you could hit him 5. The dude's going to produce offensively, and then defensively, even if he declines a little bit. I mean, you have Arenado on that left side who can still hold it down.
The second big, I think, behind Aaron Judge, the big name out there is going to be Jacob deGrom, who, when he's on and he's healthy, he's definitely the best pitcher in baseball. But of course, as we know, hurt all the time. So, I mean, do you see the Mets and Stevie Cohen with the big bucks going to same deal as the Yankees, retain him at all costs, or do you see maybe perhaps him go to Texas or somewhere else?
I can see him leaving, and Texas is where I think he'll end up. I think that Chris Young over there in Texas has a good relationship with Scott Boras, who's representing deGrom. He brought in a couple of his guys last year. I think that he expressed that he wanted to go, or he had interest in going there, and we did put out. Just gonna say, put out our graphic on that before that report came out. So I don't want to look like I'm jumping on the bandwagon afterwards. I had that before, but. I think that he's not necessarily a make or break guy for the Mets when they have other guys who are maybe a little bit more reliable to give you 25 games out there on the market that they can go get. And for deGrom, I think that with any team and with him, something good would be some kind of incentive-based deal with innings pitched, to see how many innings he can get in a season, if he can get some bonuses there, since there are questions around his health and how many games he's going to play, something that could give him a security net if he plays well, but also the team a security net if he misses starts the way he consistently has the past couple of years.
Yeah, my idea would be that he ends up back in New York, mostly because of Cohen just saying, "Here, take this. Just give me a fair number. Give me what you are worth for the next 3 years, per se, and just sign it." But a lot what doesn't get talked about in free agency anymore is guys who have families now. Like, these guys have families. Their kids have to be in schools. You don't, I mean, when you're talking to Julio Rodriguez, you're not talking about where his kids are in high school or where they are in middle school. You don't have to upbring their kids at a younger age. His kids are almost in their teenage years. They all have friends now. And that means a lot more to Kershaw now as they get older, and it's kind of they're establishing a life. He already had his life in pro ball. He's done everything at the major league level he can do. It would be hard for him to turn down going back to Texas, where he's from, whether that's with the Rangers or with the Astros. But I feel like Cohen will do everything in his power to make him a New York Met for at least the next couple of years.
That's actually an excellent point. Actually, I remember the Yankees had that. The Mets had that issue with Mike Hampton, kind of going opting to Colorado more for family reasons, where he should have probably stayed and probably would maybe help that team get another playoff run. But I think the move to get Edward Diaz kind of right out of the gate, the 5-year deal, I think maybe that was Cohen maybe at least sending a signal like, look, I'm going to try to put an awesome team around you. I'm going to get you the best close in the game just so we don't, cost you any wins, which, again, the Mets don't score any runs for him anyway. But nevertheless, I think at least Cohen's at least going to make a big play for him. But yeah, I could just definitely see him wanting to go to Texas, just a fresh organization, probably an organization that at least score runs for him.
Yeah, the name of our episode after the Mets got bounced from the playoffs was The Rise of Dark Cohen. And that's what it feels like this could be. It's just the guy going out and saying, screw every single luxury tax. I'll blow past it. This is year 3. I want to win a World Series. And he has that monetary potential to just go nuclear and grab up all the major free agents that he wants. If he wants to go and bring in Verlander, bring in DeGrom, bring in Rodon, bring in Jose Abreu. He can. None of those guys are out of the question for him, and honestly, multiple of those guys are probably in the question for him. So we'll see how he responds to that wild card round exit after 101 wins. But I think that could be the start of something crazy with him.
I would like Rondon even for the Yankees, but yeah, I could definitely see Cohen making a play for him as well.
Yeah, I think ultimately he's going to end up, it's crazy that he's going to end up securing himself a multi-year deal somewhere after probably a 9-figure deal after being one of the worst pitchers in baseball a couple of years ago. I hope he doesn't go to the Yankees. As an Orioles fan, of course. I definitely could see the Mets as a possibility. But for Rodon, I went with the Phillies. I think that he'd be a great piece to boost that rotation. Now you have Syndergaard's a free agent. You don't know if he's going to come back or not. But even if you do end up bringing Syndergaard back to have a 4 of Nola, Wheeler, Rodon, Syndergaard, and even if you drop Syndergaard and make that Ranger Suarez, that's pretty fantastic first 4.
Yeah, I went with Rondon to the Cardinals as well. The Cardinals are kind of lacking a guy that they can really count on to just make starts because Flaherty hasn't been that the last couple of years behind Wainwright. And obviously Wainwright's really playing it year by year, seeing what's going on. So it would really give them solidify sort of an ace level guy who could at least make starts for them every year, give you that sub 3.5 at the worst ERA. Because Flaherty really just hasn't shown that he can stay healthy. It's been a shoulder injury, it's been elbow injury, it's been arm injury after arm injury for him. That he just keeps getting hurt with it. So that might just be a thing with him now, and they might have to put some stability in that starting rotation to lock down a number 1 spot for a competing team year in, year out.
Yeah, and I know the Phillies got hot this postseason, but I was surprised the way they just smoked the Cardinals easily in 2 out of 3 games there. So again, they want to bring some talent in, just like give this organization a shot in the arm. So moving forward next year, obviously, in terms of stats, obviously there's going to be some big differences because, as you know, defensively now you can't do the shift. You have to have 2 players on each side of the infield, and of course you're going to have the limited amount of throws to first base, which is probably going to result in more stolen bases. So, what is your feeling on that? Do you like the fact that now defense is going to go back to more traditional, or do you just would rather have like a hands-off policy, let defenses set up the way they want to, and if a player can't hit opposite field, that's his problem.
As an Orioles fan, I wish that we could have done this about 5 years ago and seen Chris Davis without the shift. Because I wish that can we get some of that money back now that we're changing the rules? But I think that it's maybe the best way to handle the shift problem because you do have half the people who are up in arms about it. I personally think that I don't care where you play as long as you're on the field. I don't think that the positions being really defined matters to me, but I do see having to need a solution. And I think that it's the simplest solution is keep 1 foot on the dirt, stay on the side of second base. It's nothing too extreme. You can play your shortstop behind the third base bag if you want. Like you can move them around all on that side of the field. So do whatever kind of limited shifts on your half of the field. And I think that that's a pretty good medium there. And again, as an Orioles fan, I'm excited to see what Jorge Mateo can do with less pickoff attempts and less time for pitchers to do like their holds and looks and stuff. So I think we could see a big year in stolen bases from Jorge Mateo.
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely going to be an up boost. You're going to see averages go back up. Obviously, they're not going to mean more essentially, but you might see OPS average move up a little bit because of the average. overall, I just feel like it's probably the best, like you're saying, best solution for where the game was in terms of the shift. A lot of it was getting to a point where guys just are refusing to play the game because they just refuse to hit the ball or bunt the ball the other way. And it kind of just takes some of that originality from the game of baseball away, because these baseball players are supposed to be two strikes, you go the other way, contact. You get rid of some of those strikeouts a little bit. The games could become a little bit too much of the three true outcomes, which, funny enough, Brian Cashman had to ask what the three true outcomes were in one of his beginning interviews of this um, off season, which was kind of funny. But yeah, I feel like it's definitely good for the game at least.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like a lot of these like Manfred edicts he's been doing the past few seasons, like especially as like you got to face a minimum three guys out of the bullpen, stuff like that. But I think it's for the good of the game. Because I think you take the combination of how good these pitches are now and these breaking balls, and you got guys that are coming out of the pen throwing like 100 miles per hour. You combine that with these shifts where again they have the data of where to exactly position players, and you just have games where it's just boring in a way. There's no offense. It's just dead, and it's just these pitches are dominating. Offense is down total. And again, even though I don't like the overruling, I think it is for the better of the game to have more action. You'll see more singles. You see more plays on base. And again, you won't have like a Chris Davis situation where you have a great talented player only hitting 200.
Yeah, and I'm just glad that we were able to solve this for the time being without drawing lines on the field, because there was a couple of weeks there where they were drawing lines on the minor league fields behind second base, and just leave the field alone. It's beautiful as it is. We don't need to draw more chalk lines. The only two chalk lines should be going up and down the foul poles.
Gotcha. All right, guys. So as we're kind of rounding out here, just about the podcast itself. Do you have any plans during the off season or something you like to do for next season? Like, you got anything cooking?
Yeah, so off season, we're going to be looking to interview a lot of players. It's a bit difficult during the season when they're, playing games, and, we have jobs ourselves. So finding scheduled time over the season is a bit tough. So we're looking forward to getting to connect with a lot of the guys that we're talking to during this season. So you'll see some interviews coming from us, as well as expanding the MLB The Show content for sure. It's a bit of a slow time for the game before the new one comes out and the season's over, so they're not really dropping new things. So we're going to be on there creating content on the show wise, and then staying active on Instagram, of course, with signings and trades and different fun things like that. So definitely keep an eye on the socials at CTBP Pod. You mentioned that we're here on YouTube. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We have Spotify video as well, so you can watch on Spotify instead of just listen. And we're going to be active throughout the off season for sure.
All right, excellent. So it was a cool conversation. Enjoyed chatting with you guys. So David and Brad, and say hello to Jimmy. Well, one thing I am happy, I'm glad I called to the bullpen. I'm sorry, that was cheesy.
At least you're calling it the bullpen and not the arm barn.